Well, good day. I pray that the week's been going well for you, and I hope that these devotionals are words fitly spoken. They seem to minister to the right situation. I think I've got a pretty good chance of hitting the target when we talk about worry, because it's something that is really part and parcel of how most of us live a good deal of the time. We live in a really troubling world right now, and we can be concerned about the future. There's no limit to the things I can worry about. As I'm currently going through this series, What the World's Coming To, I've been pointing out a lot of things that really seem to be indicators that we're moving rather quickly towards the time in which Christ returns. But the thing is, with Christ's return, is things, he said, will get a lot worse before he comes back. In fact, he said it'll be downright horrific at the moment that he does return. And so, a lot of us worry about how that's going to affect us personally. And that's where this whole teaching on not being worrisome is so critically important, so valuable in a very practical way. To simply say to somebody who is really stressed out, well, you just need to stop worrying and trust God, can be really the slap of basically an insult. I mean, it's like you're not really helping them get through the issue. And usually when you want to talk to somebody who is really struggling with worry, you have to begin by identifying in yourself how worry has affected you, and begin to empathize with that person, saying, I get what you're going through because I've struggled with this, and these are the things that the Lord has shown me that have helped me overcome this in my life, because worry is a real tyranny. It's a tool of the devil. In fact, in Hebrews, the writer said that the devil uses fear, which is what worry is, as a way of keeping people in a captivity. They live in the fear of death. And sometimes the fear of death is not even physical death. It's fear of the death of a business, or the fear of a death of a relationship, or whatever, a fear of the death of a nation, which I think really seems to be drawing near here for us as well. And in all of these things, what happens is we begin to live our life predicated and referenced by what we're afraid of, instead of letting Christ be the predicate and letting him be the reference point that we make our decisions around. People are fearful, kind of naturally shift into a self-protective mode. And that's why he said, don't allow yourself to be controlled or governed by fear. But I think that also, as we look at this, he said that there's an antidote to fear, and we talked about that first, seeking him, making him the priority in your day. Time is the most valuable resource you and I have, and we need to learn to spend it wisely. When we're young, we fritter it away on stupid stuff. But as we get older, we realize that we have only so many more innings and so many at-bats to make a difference in the world. And therefore, we need to really choose to use our time wisely, to redeem the time, as Paul put it. And that means you begin by seeking him first. You make him the beginning moment of your day, where you really kind of allow God to speak into your heart in a meaningful way. And then suddenly resolve that you're going to do two things. One, you're going to really seek to build his kingdom. And secondly, you're going to seek to live in right relationship with him. And what's really interesting, and I think this is an important part of it, what do I get out of that? What is the benefit that comes to me? And that's where Jesus continued. He's saying, here's the payoff. He says, and all these things, and he's listing really what are the necessities of life: food, shelter, clothing. In our world, we expand that out to transportation, communication. These are the things that really are the integral highways of our day-to-day life that we have to travel to get from point A to point B. And he says, all of these things, which are the necessities of life, will be given to you as well. And that's an amazing promise when you think about it, that Jesus is saying to us, if you will make me the first option in your life, the thing that you focus on above and beyond everything else, to the exclusion of all the other things that are concerning you, not only will I be honored in your life, but I will take care of everything you have need of. My wife and I, we're both 71 now, and we were having this conversation the other day, because I said, it's really hard because we're not wealthy, but it's really amazing to me how we have so much more than we can ever want. And it's not because we set out at some point to accomplish or to acquire, but rather we just simply sought the Lord, and things just came together. Now, I understand those things can come apart just as quickly, as Corrie ten Boom said, that we should hold very loosely to the things of this life, because we never know when God might require them from us. But nonetheless, I didn't acquire these things, and so I don't have the stress of trying to hold on to them. My pastor had a great saying. He said, if you strive to gain, you'll always have to strive to maintain. Or we might put it this way, if your hard work, if you believe your hard work is what got you what you got, then you're never going to be able to stop working hard to hold on to what you got. And that becomes a trap. It becomes a trap even in ministry, because sometimes pastors are always trying to warn their flocks of the bad things that are happening and never setting before them the direction that they should be moving. And that's the important thing, that God says you don't have to worry about tomorrow. In fact, he puts it this way: therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I know some of you are saying, I understand the words, but I'm not really understanding how that fits together. Let me see if I can break it down a little bit for you. Therefore, he's saying basically, don't live in fear. Don't live your life in fear about what's coming tomorrow. And see, what we live in fear about tomorrow is that we'll lose our kingdom. We'll lose the things that bring us pleasure and happiness. That we'll lose relationships and all the rest of that stuff. We live our lives always obsessed with this concern about these things and trying to figure out, what can I do to ensure that those things don't get taken from me? And what he points out when he says that tomorrow will worry about itself, he said what you have to understand is it's going to unfold just the way that God intended it to unfold. What's coming tomorrow may not be what you want, but it's what God wants, and therefore you can rest in his care over your situation. And so that instead of focusing on how you can keep these things together, he says instead, trust that I will do what I'm going to do. And if you have basic needs, those needs are going to be covered. Above and beyond that, well, that's up to God's will. And you need to learn to accept what I bring into your life. And then he adds, for each day has trouble enough of its own. In other words, one of the things I know for sure about tomorrow is some bad things are going to happen. And many of us are trying to construct a world where nothing ever goes bad, and they have complete control, and they can kind of fence out all the negatives that kind of come into our life. I mean, I think about the amount of insurance and other kind of protections that we spend money on, which I'm not saying is necessarily bad, but we're doing that not because it's prudent, but rather we're doing it because we think that somehow we can put a barrier around our life and keep the bad things out. It's really along the lines of moving to the mountains of Montana and building a cabin and surrounding it with claymores and razor wire and having a gun turret so you can take out anybody who wants to steal your canned goods. That itself makes you the prisoner of that place that you built. You built it for your safety and security. Now it's become your prison. Now, if God's calling you to move to Montana and do all of that, then go in his grace. I mean, bless that, and you'll see God's hand of blessing on that. But if you head out that direction and things just aren't coming together and it's getting more difficult, it may be because that's about you, that's not about him. And that's where we have to come to a conclusion. I have been pastoring for almost 40 years in Calvary in Spokane, Washington, not because I chose Spokane as a place to live. And believe me, it's a pretty nice place to live. On balance, I compare it to a lot of places, and I'm really thankful to be here. But that's not why I live here. I live here because I was seeking first the kingdom of God, and he directed me in this way. And this was a path he wants me to follow, and he has the same thing for you. So as I attempt to bring this to a close, I just really encourage you, seek first his kingdom. And next week, we'll continue our conversation about these things. God bless you and go in his grace.